Guntram Wolff, director of the think tank Bruegel. Guntram, what are you watching for when leaders meet over the next few days?
Well, I certainly enjoyed the pictures we just saw, but I think on the substance side, what I'm really watching for is one important issue is the vaccination. And, what can these leaders agree on in terms of accelerating worldwide vaccination? I mean, it is absolutely fundamental for the economies of the G7 that not only the G7 economies themselves vaccinate, but that the rest of the world, the poor countries, vaccinate so that this virus gets under control. And I think they should really make some progress here on spending the necessary billions. The IMF estimates suggest it's about 50 billion to get the world vaccinated by the end of next year. That's not so much money, and what is missing is really just 15 billion. So I really think this should be one of the key outcomes of this G7.
Guntram, do you think Europe can deliver some leadership here? I was talking to Charles Michel a little bit earlier on, the president of the European Council. He says that Europe has exported some 350 million vaccines already. It is a huge number and it has led the way. Yet the topic that we're discussing here is one that is dominated by the United States and the pledges that President Biden is making. How does Europe get out in front? How does Europe provide leadership here?
Well, frankly speaking, I do think that Europe is providing massive leadership. It hasn't, not everybody has understood it, but Europe is exporting some 300 million doses already. It has already exported so many doses, while most of the other countries assembled there haven't exported much. And so really, Europe is a major producer of vaccines. It has developed with BioNTech one of the most successful vaccines. The UK has developed the other one. And, we as sort of Western countries, I think should really sort of pull together and show global leadership here, because others, such as China and Russia, use vaccine exports, basically to foster foreign policy goals. And I think there's a goal here for us as Western powers to really say, look, I mean, this is an opportunity to really show leadership and show to the rest of the world that we care.
The other part that I feel like talking about the rest of the world is how Europe is going to potentially lead on climate. Because once you get the rest of the world vaccinated, getting a really big green push globally could very much come from Europe. What is going to be the push here in the G7, and what can we look for?
Yeah, absolutely. So climate change is the other big topic. The European Union has very ambitious climate targets. The US also increasingly wants to move in that direction. And of course, if the US and the EU agree, and if the UK also agrees, it would form a very strong sort of bloc that will decarbonize relatively quickly. And I think the key is here really the next 10 years. How quick will be the decarbonization process in these G7 countries, in the EU, in the next 10 years? If it is pretty fast, as it's currently hoped for, then we need to work on some sort of a carbon border adjustment mechanism, meaning imports into the EU will be taxed unless they are as climate friendly as the domestic production to prevent carbon leakage, but really also to give an incentive to the rest of the world to decarbonize more quickly.
It's interesting. People are starting to talk about a policy impediment being the lack of a carbon policy or a lack of a carbon price over in the United States. Guntram, I want to wrap up talking about what the relationship with China is going to look like. The US is looking to take a robust stance towards China. That is one of the key objectives of Biden's trip. Not only here to the G7, but to NATO, the EU summit, and then obviously on to talk to President Putin. Can we just talk a little bit about China, though? How has the recent shift in Europe aligned Europe with the United States? How close do you think they are? Because it wasn't until recently, it was only recently, that we were talking about the idea that we were going to see a trade pact being signed between Europe and China.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there is a lot of confusion in this debate. I mean, on the one hand, I do think that both the US as well as the EU want to do a business with China. I mean, it's a super important market. Our firms are all active there, and we engage a lot. On the other hand, of course, there's significant concerns about the economic model in China, but even more so about human rights abuses and many other topics and sort of oppressions in the neighborhood of China. And so the question is, how do you deal with that situation? And I think we Europeans and Americans share the same concerns, but we do not quite agree on what is the best strategy. And I think Angela Merkel, in a sense, represents the German chancellor represents the strategy of, well, we have to engage with China, but we have to also, on some issues, raise our concerns. While Donald Trump has been so very confrontational. Now, I don't know yet exactly where Biden will end on this. I think they are still really wondering what is the right approach to really push through our concerns and deliver some change on the side of China.